Ella sat on the edge of her worn-out couch, her hands twisting the corners of an old blanket. The apartment felt smaller than ever tonight, the shadows in the corners seeming to whisper reminders of bills she couldn't pay. Rent was due tomorrow, and she hadn't been able to save enough. The thought of another month of late fees made her stomach knot. She had always managed on her own, even during tough times, but this month had slipped through her fingers faster than she could handle. The cafe job that usually kept her afloat had cut her hours, and every cent had gone to groceries and basic necessities. She felt trapped, like the walls of the apartment were closing in, and for the first time in years, she wasn't sure how she would make it through. A sudden knock at the door made her jump. Her heart raced before she even opened it. Mr. Thompson, her landlord, stood there, his usual polite smile replaced by a serious look. She had always respected him. He wasn't cruel, just firm about his rules. Ella took a deep breath, trying to steady her voice. "Hi, Mr. Thompson," she said, her words barely above a whisper. I wanted to talk about the rent. I'm a little behind this month, but I'll pay as soon as I can." Mr. Thompson tilted his head, studying her. There was a moment of silence where she thought he might simply leave, frustrated. Then he spoke, his voice softer than she expected. "Ella, I know things are hard right now. Everyone has rough months. I don't want to make this worse for you, but I have responsibilities too. I might have an idea that could help." Ella blinked, hope flickering inside her chest. "Really? What do you mean?" He stepped aside slightly, gesturing toward two people standing just behind him. A man and a woman, both in their late 20s, smiled politely. "Ella, meet Jack and Lily. They're friends of mine, and they're looking for a place to stay temporarily. I thought maybe you could help each other out." Ella's stomach twisted. She had never shared her space with strangers before, and her first instinct was panic. Her apartment was small, and she wasn't sure how this could possibly work. Yet, as she looked at the friendly faces before her, she noticed something in their eyes, warmth, understanding, and a kind of patience she hadn't seen in a long time. "I don't know," she began, uncertainty thick in her voice. "I mean, it's a really small space. I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable." Jack, the man, chuckled lightly. "We won't be a problem. I promise. We're quiet and we just need somewhere safe for a little while." Lily, the woman, gave her a reassuring smile. "We understand this is your home. We'll respect it, I promise. We just need some temporary shelter while we get back on our feet." Ella hesitated. She wanted to say yes, but her mind raced with doubts. Sharing her home, the place that had been her sanctuary through lonely nights and tough days, felt like stepping into the unknown. But then she remembered the pile of bills on the table, the empty space in her wallet, and the gnawing fear of eviction. "Okay," she said finally, her voice trembling but resolute. "I think we can try, but only if we're clear on rules. I need my space respected." Jack nodded enthusiastically. "Absolutely. We want this to work for everyone." Lily added, "We'll figure it out together. It'll be fine." Over the next hour, the three of them began moving in, unpacking small bags, and arranging the space carefully so it wouldn't feel crowded. Ella watched cautiously, surprised at how natural the interactions felt. Jack moved around calmly, carefully placing his belongings, while Lily quietly offered to help her tidy up. The apartment, which had felt oppressive earlier, started to feel alive with possibility. The sound of laughter, even the soft hum of voices as they shared small stories, filled the corners of her home. That night, after Jack and Lily had settled into their little corner of the living room, Ella sat by her window, staring at the city lights. She felt a strange mix of relief and uncertainty. She had feared chaos and discomfort, but instead, she felt curiosity stirring in her chest. These strangers, these new friends, might just bring more than temporary solutions. Maybe, she thought, they could bring a sense of connection. She hadn't realized she was missing Dot as she turned off the lights and prepared for bed. Ella felt the flutter of hope at life, even when unpredictable, sometimes found a way to surprise you. Tomorrow would bring challenges, but for the first time in weeks, she felt like she wasn't facing them completely alone. The morning sun spilled through the thin curtains, casting a warm glow over the small apartment. Ella woke to the sound of Jack and Lily moving around in the living room, chatting quietly about breakfast plans. At first, she felt awkward. Her apartment, once quiet and private, now buzzed with life she hadn't invited herself. She sat on the edge of her bed, listening to their laughter, feeling a mix of unease and curiosity. By the time she stepped into the kitchen, Jack was humming a tune, carefully pouring cereal into bowls, while Lily poured orange juice. "Good morning," Ella said softly, trying to keep her voice casual. "Morning," Jack replied, flashing a smile that made her heart skip. He handed her a bowl of cereal. "We saved you the best part." Lily laughed lightly. "Ella, you need to eat something before work. You look like you've been running on empty." Ella shook her head, a small smile tugging at her lips. "I'm fine," she said, though the warmth from their concern made her chest feel lighter than it had in weeks. Somehow, having them here, even if temporary, made her life feel less heavy. As days passed, the awkwardness slowly melted away. They found a rhythm, sharing meals, tidying the apartment together, and sometimes just sitting in silence, comfortable in each other's presence. Ella began noticing small things about them. Jack's quiet patience, the way he always asked before moving anything, and Lily's gentle humor that came out when she thought no one was paying attention. One evening, Ella found herself sitting on the balcony, sipping tea while Jack leaned against the railing beside her. They were watching the city lights blink on one by one as dusk settled over the streets. A gentle breeze carried the smell of rain from a nearby storm, and for a moment the three of them felt suspended in time, removed from the pressures of bills, work, and loneliness. "I never thought I'd be okay sharing my apartment," Ella admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. She stared at the lights, unsure if she wanted to look at him. Jack turned his head slightly, catching her eye. "Sometimes life surprises us," he said softly. "You think something will be uncomfortable, and instead, it turns into something good." Ella's heart fluttered. There was a quiet honesty in his voice that made her feel seen, understood in a way that no one had in a long time. She wanted to reach out, to touch that comfort, but something held her back. The following week, they had a small movie night in the living room. Jack had insisted on making popcorn, and Lily had picked a light-hearted film to distract everyone from the stress that lingered outside the apartment walls. As the opening credits rolled, Ella noticed Jack sitting a little closer than before. Their knees brushed and she felt a jolt of awareness shoot through her. She tried to focus on the movie, but the brush of his hand against hers, accidental as it might have been, lingered in her mind. Lily noticed the small tension in the room and nudged them lightly with a grin. "You two are like kids," she teased, making both of them laugh nervously. As laughter faded and the movie played on, Ella found herself stealing glances at Jack. His profile, the curve of his jaw, the thoughtful expression when he watched the screen, it all drew her in, though she didn't fully understand why. There was something magnetic about him, something that made her forget the bills, the worries, even her own fears. Days became weeks, and the apartment, once a place of stress and fear, now carried warmth. They shared meals, exchanged stories, and found comfort in the quiet presence of one another. Even the smallest gestures, a hand on her shoulder, A shared smile. A soft laugh began to mean more than Ella could explain. One rainy evening, the three of them gathered by the window, watching water slide down the glass. The storm outside created a cocoon-like effect, isolating them from the world. Jack placed a hand gently on the windowsill, close to hers, and the warmth from his touch sent an unexpected thrill through her chest. "I've never had this before," Ella admitted quietly, her voice almost lost under the sound of the rain. "Having someone care enough to just be here. To stay?" Jack turned to look at her, his gaze steady and kind. "Sometimes we don't realize how much we need connection until it shows up unexpectedly," he said. His hand hovered near hers, a silent offer of comfort, patience, and maybe something more. Lily, noticing the moment, gave them a small, understanding smile and retreated to pour tea for everyone. The room was quiet, but in that silence, Ella felt a heartbeat of something new, an unspoken bond, a closeness she had never felt before. She realized that life's struggles had brought her exactly what she needed. Even if she hadn't known it. By the end of that night, Ella returned to her small bedroom, her mind spinning with thoughts she couldn't fully name. Jack and Lily were still in the living room, talking softly, the sound of rain filling the pauses. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling a warmth she hadn't felt in months. For the first time, the apartment felt like home, not just a place to live. And in the quiet after the storm, she understood that sometimes the most unexpected arrivals in life, people, friendships, even love, could change everything. Over the next few days, their bond deepened naturally. They shared quiet mornings, exchanged smiles over breakfast, and laughed together at small mishaps around the apartment. Lily noticed the subtle glances and gentle touches, offering teasing comments that made both Ella and Jack blush. The apartment was no longer just a living space. It had become a safe place where hearts could open without fear. One evening, as the three of them sat on the balcony watching the sunset, Jack turned to Ella. "You know," he said, "I think some of the best things in life come when we least expect them. Like meeting people who change everything without even trying." Ella smiled, feeling a warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. "I know," she whispered. "You've changed everything for me." Jack reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Ella's heart raced at the tenderness of the gesture. She leaned into the touch, feeling a quiet connection that needed no words. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, she felt completely at peace with the world around her. By the end of the month, Ella had caught up on her rent, thanks to small side jobs and the support of Jack and Lily. But the real change wasn't financial, it was emotional. She had discovered a sense of belonging, companionship, and a budding love that had grown quietly in the spaces of shared meals, laughter, and gentle touches. One night, as they all sat together laughing over a shared memory from that first awkward week, Jack looked at Ella. "I think we were meant to meet like this," he said softly. Ella's chest tightened. She smiled, her heart full. "Maybe we were," she whispered, feeling the truth of it deep inside. The apartment, once a place of stress and worry, was now alive with love, laughter, and hope. And as the three of them sat together, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance, Ella realized that life's most meaningful moments often arrived quietly, without fanfare, but with the power to change everything. In that small, cozy apartment, surrounded by warmth, friendship, and the gentle stirrings of love, Ella felt a new beginning. She had faced struggles, uncertainty, and fear. But now, with Jack and Lily by her side, she knew that life had a way of leading her to exactly where she needed to be. And for the first time in a long time, she felt ready to embrace whatever came next. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, of course. But tonight, with Jack and Lily near, she felt safe, hopeful, and ready to see where this unexpected journey might lead. The days in the apartment had settled into a quiet rhythm, but with routine came moments of unexpected intensity. Ella noticed herself thinking about Jack more than she realized. It wasn't just his quiet humor or the way he helped with chores. It was something in the way he looked at her, a warmth in his gaze that made her heart skip. Lily noticed too, teasing her gently whenever she laughed a little too loudly at one of Jack's jokes. One evening, the rain started again, soft at first, then heavier, drumming against the windows. Ella sat on the balcony, wrapped in a blanket, sipping tea. Jack joined her silently, holding his mug, and stood close enough that their shoulders brushed. Neither spoke at first. There was something in the air, a quiet tension that felt like electricity, subtle but undeniable. Ella finally broke the silence. "I never thought I'd feel this comfortable with someone so quickly," she admitted. Her eyes met his, searching for a reaction. Jack smiled, not a playful grin, but something deeper, more personal. "Comfortable can be dangerous," he said softly, "because it makes us notice what we're missing." Ella's heart fluttered. She didn't know exactly what he meant, but she felt an unspoken connection growing between them. She sipped her tea, pretending to focus on the swirling steam, but every glance in his direction sent a ripple of warmth through her chest. The next day brought another quiet moment that Ella would never forget. She was sorting laundry when Jack came up behind her, handing her a folded sweater she hadn't realized was inside out. "You missed this," he said lightly, but the way he looked at her made her pause. There was no rush, no pressure, just attention. Ella's cheeks warmed. "Thanks," she said softly, feeling the simple gesture mean more than it should. Evenings became the most tender moments of all. They would sit together on the couch after dinner, talking about everything and nothing, their hands sometimes brushing, their laughter mingling. One night, Lily suggested they play a board game to lighten the mood. Jack sat close to Ella, and as they leaned over the board, their fingers brushed repeatedly. Each touch lingered a moment too long, leaving a charge in the air neither of them could ignore. Ella tried to dismiss it as coincidence, but she knew it wasn't. She felt drawn to him in a way that went beyond friendship. She wanted to say something, to express what she felt, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she focused on the little moments, the shared smiles, the soft laughter, the comfort of having someone who truly noticed her. One rainy evening, as the three of them watched water slide down the windows, the room quiet except for the storm outside, Jack reached out to steady a cup of tea on the table. His hand brushed hers, and neither pulled away. The small contact held a weight, a meaning that words couldn't capture. Ella's breath hitched, and she felt a flutter of emotions she wasn't ready to name. Jack looked at her, eyes soft and steady. "Ella, can I ask you something?" he said, his voice gentle. "Do you ever feel like life is trying to tell you something? Like it's pushing you toward people or moments you didn't expect?" Ella's heart pounded. I think so," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "I felt that since you and Lily moved in. It's strange. I wasn't ready for any of this, but somehow it feels right." Jack's hand hovered near hers, then rested lightly on the edge of the table, close enough that their fingers almost touched. There was a pause, full of unspoken understanding, before the moment was broken by Lily laughing at something on the screen. Ella felt a mixture of relief and disappointment. Relief that the moment hadn't been too bold. Disappointment because she didn't want it to end. Later that night, Ella lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. She replayed every interaction with Jack, every gentle glance, every accidental touch, trying to decipher the meaning behind them. The more she thought, the more she realized she didn't just like him. She felt something deeper, a connection that had grown slowly, silently, and undeniably. She couldn't ignore it anymore. She wanted to reach for him, to bridge the gap between friendship and something more. But fear held her back. Fear of rejection, of complicating their living situation, of stepping into the unknown. Yet at the same time, she felt a pull she couldn't resist, a quiet urging of her heart that whispered she should take a chance. The next morning, Jack found her on the balcony again, wrapped in her blanket. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets glistening under the early sun. He handed her a cup of coffee without a word, standing close enough that their shoulders touched. Ella accepted it, their fingers brushing lightly. Her heart skipped, and she realized she was no longer afraid of the closeness. They had created a small world together, safe, warm, and intimate, without words. "I think," Jack said after a moment, his voice low, "that some people enter your life for a reason. Maybe we were meant to meet like this, in this strange, unexpected way." Ella's chest tightened. "Maybe," she whispered, unable to look away from him. She felt a flutter of hope, a spark of something new, and the undeniable truth that her heart was opening to him slowly, carefully but completely. The apartment, once just a place to survive, now held laughter, warmth, and an unspoken romantic tension that made every small interaction feel meaningful. Ella knew the next step was uncertain, but she felt finally ready to explore the possibilities life had placed in her path. As the sun rose higher, casting a golden light across the apartment, Ella realized that sometimes love didn't announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it came quietly, through gentle gestures, small touches, and the patient presence of someone who truly saw you. And she knew that she was beginning to feel that kind of love for Jack, in a way that would change everything. The apartment felt different now, full of warmth, laughter, and the quiet hum of understanding between three people who had become more than strangers. Ella moved through her morning routine with a lightness she hadn't felt in months. The stress of unpaid bills, the worry of eviction, and the loneliness that had shadowed her days was slowly fading, replaced by a sense of connection she couldn't ignore. Jack and Lily had settled into their temporary home, but it no longer felt temporary to Ella. Their presence had filled spaces she didn't even know were empty. Every shared meal, every conversation, every small gesture had drawn them closer, and Ella realized that her heart had quietly begun to care for Jack in a way she couldn't put into words. She wasn't certain if he felt the same, but the little glances, the accidental touches, and the moments of quiet understanding suggested he might. That evening, the three of them sat together in the living room, sorting through the day's small chores. Jack passed her a folded blanket with a gentle smile, while Lily hummed softly as she tidied the kitchen counter. Ella felt a warmth in her chest, a quiet reassurance that life could still surprise her with unexpected kindness. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Jack suggested they go out to the balcony. The sky had turned a deep shade of orange, streaked with violet, and the city lights were beginning to blink on one by one. Ella wrapped herself in a blanket, and Jack stood beside her, their shoulders brushing naturally. There was a comfortable silence between them, the kind that didn't demand words but was full of meaning. "I never imagined life would bring me here," Ella said quietly, staring at the glowing skyline. "I thought I'd be stuck, struggling alone, and then you and Lily arrived. It's changed everything." Jack turned to her, his gaze soft and steady. "Sometimes, the hardest moments lead to the most important connections. We meet people we never expected, and they become a part of our lives in ways we can't predict." Ella felt her heart flutter at the sincerity in his voice. The pull she had felt for him over the past weeks surged stronger now. a quiet urgency she could no longer ignore. She wanted to tell him how much she cared, but the right words seemed too fragile to carry her feelings. Instead, she let herself simply exist in the moment, feeling the closeness, the warmth, and the sense that everything was falling into place. That night, after Lily had gone to bed, Jack and Ella found themselves alone in the living room. The room was softly lit, and the hum of the city outside created a soothing background. Jack looked at her with a vulnerability she hadn't noticed before, and for the first time, Ella felt the courage to let her heart speak. "You've changed the way I see things," he said softly. "I've been through tough times too, but being here, with you, it feels different. It feels like home." Ella's breath caught. "Jack, I feel the same. I didn't expect this, but I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you and Lily came into my life." His hand hovered near hers, then gently rested on the edge of hers without pressing. The gesture was simple, but it spoke volumes. There was trust, affection, and a quiet promise in that small touch. Ella felt her chest tighten with emotion, a mixture of joy, relief, and anticipation for what might come next.